As a kid growing up, I was very insecure about myself, and in my teenage years, I was very afraid of public speaking, of approaching strangers in public, of putting myself out there. Even when I first started making podcasts and YouTube videos, I was very afraid of people's opinions, of being judged online, of expressing myself. No matter where you're coming from and whether your anxiety comes from a psychological thing or a physiological thing, you can overcome it through the power of meditation. And I will teach you how later in this video. But first, let's just talk about the two different categories of anxiety. So one is, as I said, psychological. So it's from the mind. It's all mind generated. And this is where 95% of all anxiety actually comes from. There's a couple of reasons why we might have that psychological anxiety. One of them is procrastination. So if there's something that you want to do, but you're not doing it, you're resisting it, that creates a separation inside of you, which leads to anxiety. It could be that you are postponing your own happiness by maybe not doing the things you love to do. Every single day you're saying, I'll do it tomorrow. It could be that there is something that you really want to approach in the gym, like some guy or girl, and you're like, I want to, but I'm not doing it. And every time you run into that situation, you're exacerbating that anxiety because you're creating a separation between what you want and what you're actually doing. So again, discrepancy creates anxiety. Future fear is another one that creates a lot of anxiety. And again, what are you fearing about this future? You're fearing judgment from other people and you're fearing rejection from other people. But what you have to realize is that the future does not exist. You can't measure it, you can't find it, you will always be present. So people who struggle with social anxiety, for example, they go to a social party and they dread the idea of talking to people and they already feel anxious. Well, nothing has happened yet. You are just projecting yourself into the future. So you see a pattern here. There's where you are right now, and then there is your projection in the future. Now, because there is a discrepancy between these two, you create anxiety inside of you. So a pretty simple way to solve that is just choose to be present and then realize that what you are fearing does not exist. You're fearing an illusory monster that doesn't exist. Now, the future creates a lot of problems for us when we think about it, when we project ourselves into it, but the past does the exact same thing. So dwelling on the past creates problems in the present. So it could be that something happened that was traumatic in the past, and sometimes through meditation we can heal that. Through dreaming we can heal these things. Through journaling we can heal these things. However, dwelling on the past never benefits us because most likely you're thinking about something you already thought about before. So you're really just digging up the same grave twice. There's no reasons to do that. Stress. So again, wanting to be in the future. Stress is just wanting to be in the future. It's nothing more than that. You want to get something over with. Why? Because you want to be on the other side of that obstacle. But you're projecting yourself into a reality that does not exist. Stress is completely delusional because you can't be in the future. There is no future. No one has been there. The future is more mystical than the afterlife. No one has ever seen the future. So realize that you can only be right here, right now. And once you align yourself with this moment, you return to your body, the stress dissipates, and with that, obviously anxiety goes away as well. Anxious people is another one. So low frequencies basically, and you could meet them online as well as in the offline world. And it's almost like a little virus, right? So people are coughing and then a couple of days later you start coughing as well. So it's a bit like that with anxiety as well. There might come a point in your life when you have to guard your own energy, to separate yourself from people from your past who maybe resonate with these energies that you want to now step away from. There are so many places you might encounter low frequencies. It could be through music. You might have to reconsider your favorite playlist and ask yourself, does this calibrate higher or lower than where I want to be? You have to do the same with the people, the hobbies, the environments. You want to do the same thing with the different fora that you might go into online, such as comment sections or Reddit or whatever it is. And then you have to really evaluate, like, is this frequency that I'm seeing here, like overall, is this what I want to be part of? Does this make me feel high vibrational or low vibrational? And then you slowly surround yourself with higher and higher vibrations. But as far as like people goes, there might be a little point. Like, this is very popular to put as a disclaimer when it comes to like letting go of your past and then embracing the new, is that you will have to go through a period of not loneliness, okay, which is a low vibration, but maybe solitude. And even that, you have to realize, is better than whatever you had before, than being around low vibrational people, then surround yourself with low vibrational energies. At the same time, realize that there is something inside of us that is hungry for that old. So you might feel really good, and then every once in a while you might feel like something inside of you is almost pulling you back into where you were before, and those old frequencies, those old habits. And you can read about it in, I believe, The Power of Now, Eckhart Tolle's book. He talks about this and he calls it the pain body, but also call it the old self, which is seeking this comfortable familiarity. And I think that to some extent we will always have to deal with that, because we will always have to deal with the mind. And more on this in a bit when we talk about how to overcome all these things, because there is a very simple way. But just realize that the moment you choose to be more high vibrational, there's going to be that old self that is going to try to pull you back. And it might even manifest in other people. The moment you raise your own vibration, you might notice that now your old friends become more eager to hang out with you, because you're creating unfamiliarity in them as well when you choose to align yourself with higher frequencies. Just like your old self is trying to pull you back into your old ways and go back to what is familiar, your friends, like actual people, they will also feel like, hey, you know, this makes me uncomfortable to see them essentially be different. Or you could also just say thrive, to be happy, to be ecstatic about life. This is unfamiliar, this is uncomfortable. Now, this will invoke something inside of them that is going to try to pull you down, actually. They're going to try to trigger you. They're going to try to intoxicate you with drugs, whatever it takes. None of this is personal. This is just these old selves trying to, it's just these old selves inside of us and inside of everyone else trying to kind of create equilibrium. And there's nothing personal in that. That's just how the mind operates. It's very, very primitive. So this was the psychological, like the mind created anxiety. Now let's look into the physiological, right? So the physiological is when you, for example, have been exposed to pharmaceutical drugs. Like, for example, birth control pills can create physical anxiety, or obesity reduction pills can create physical anxiety. So you might actually feel very clear-headed and very positive, but then you have this physical response of anxiety that kind of doesn't have a rationale to exist inside of you. So that's a bit different. It could also be created by other drugs, right? So, for example, caffeine. We've talked about this a lot. Caffeine creates physical symptoms of anxiety inside of you. They might manifest as psychological, but they are primary physical. And the same goes for the withdrawals. So when your central nervous system is repairing itself, you actually get a lot of that rebound anxiety. And even though you feel good about your journey, you're feeling like you're purifying yourself, you're detoxing, everything is kind of feeling really good, but then you get this anxiety from the physical body that doesn't really feel like it belongs. Scarcity. When you're in a situation of scarcity, your body gets stressed. You get a physical feeling of stress. It could be caused by fasting. If you do it forcefully, like if you just forcefully out of nowhere just say, okay, I'm just gonna fast for 7 days, without getting any intuition from your body that this is something you should be doing. If you just forcefully do it, you are gonna experience anxiety, you are gonna raise your cortisol levels to a point where even your testosterone is gonna lower, you're gonna sleep worse, you might even lose muscle mass, right? So it's definitely not a good idea to forcefully fast. Poor sleep can also create all these negative side effects. Again, creating this scarcity inside your body creates a stress response. Negative thinking, the psychological, can create a physical response of anxiety inside the body. It can manifest itself. So as I said, there is this old self. Now we can feed that, right? We can feed that by adding more negativity to it. We can actually make that more negative, more strong, more dark, more big. And this basically continues to live inside of us, right? So it manifests itself as a physical entity almost inside our energetic bodies. And then we're walking around and we're just feeling these bursts of anxiety from the physical body out of nowhere. And they're just a response from accumulation of anxiety over time. When it comes to all these things, when it comes to all anxiety, you need to start meditating. Obviously, if you're on some drugs right now, obviously the best way to overcome the physical response is to detox from these drugs as well as from the withdrawals. So you have to overcome the withdrawals. And all we are left with from on the physical side is just this background unease, right? Which through meditation, even that is something we can overcome, and we can learn to have a really good life and to have a very high level of contentment despite having even the physical response. But if you're someone who is, like most people, who's dealing with the psychological part of anxiety, you can overcome it 100% in its full totality through meditation. You can do it right now. In fact, let's try it right now. Let's sit in a chair comfortably and take a deep breath. Let's start with taking a deep breath. And let's take another one. And a third one, right? So already we are feeling better. And do a quick body scan. Close your eyes. And start noticing your thoughts. Become aware of every thought that arises inside of you. Just be here. Let the thoughts come and go. And you can wonder if you want. I wonder what my next thought is going to be. Now, if the mind starts taking over and you find yourself lost in the mind again, just go back. Take another deep breath. Close your eyes, relax in your body, and just go back to observing the thoughts that arise inside of you. And you really just keep going like this for 15 minutes. And you notice that you just become disidentified with all these thoughts. There are good thoughts, there are bad thoughts. There are just thoughts. You might like some of them, you might dislike some of them, it doesn't matter. You just let all of them pass by, you learn to observe them, and then with that you learn to observe all the anxious thoughts as well, and you will notice that you become lighter as you continue doing this. The tension of anxiety just leaves you. It dissolves. But you need to commit to this practice every single day. A couple of times a day, as many times as you need, just for a couple of minutes, just like we did right now. You need to start meditating like this a couple of minutes every now and then. Whenever you feel a little bit anxious, whenever you feel like the mind is taking over, whenever you feel like there's discomfort inside of you, return to this quick little practice. 3 deep breaths and start observing your own mind. And that's it. Thanks for watching. Stay blessed.